Welcome to Dog Day afternoon. It is Friday, June 3rd, which means summer is almost here. Beautiful day here in Canada, Quan. Great day to make some bets. And I'm Gilles Gallant with FTN Bets on a show powered by the FTN Network. I'm joined, as always, by producer extraordinaire Daquan Young. Now, Quan, we had a winning day, 2-2, 1.35 units of profit. Nothing to really write home about, but a Warriors loss in game one. And as a lifetime Warriors fan from the state of Michigan, are you worried about your NBA Finals pick now?
No, because Steph went off. That's what matters. So it's hard to say that the Celtics aren't going to shoot like that again because Draymond said it, and we've been saying it throughout these whole playoffs. I think Steph got his numbers, and that's the most important part of that bet. Him continuing to play like he is, I don't think the Celtics are going to find an answer. I saw somebody tweeted it, like it's kind of worrisome that Steph went off so early. But, I mean, a horrible fourth quarter showing, and the experience didn't pay off, which every time I say something or blurt something out, the opposite rings true. So the jinx is still running strong, but I like where – I like the way he played. I still think, it's gonna be a good series. 6-7. The Celtics are 5-4 at home in the playoffs. So not concerned about the Warriors, not stealing one there. So it'll definitely come back to Golden State. Won't be a sweep, won't be a gentleman's sweep. We're in for a good series, and that game last night was really good.
Yeah, man, it was an awesome game in the playoffs. And not only that, like you could tell by what the sports books are putting out for game two odds. Now up to -4.5 in comparison to what game one was at -3, maybe -3.5, depending on the book, depending on what it closed. But the series prices, what a flip by that. I was saying that the Celtics were going to be winning in 6. That was at +500 prior to the win. Now down to +325, and it's the most likeliest outcome now based on the different series price odds. For the Warriors, the most likely series price now is Warriors in 7. That's sitting there at +350. So again, I feel like there's some pretty good value there for anybody who's maybe looking to try to get a little bit last minute value. If you didn't end up betting game one at all, we'll talk about that more throughout the playoffs. But got an awesome guest today, Quan. We've got Iain MacMillan of BetSided coming on the show to talk Stanley Cup playoffs, Major League Baseball bets, give us a little preview of the UFC Fight Night card that's happening tomorrow. So yeah, Iain coming on the show. I was on his show earlier this week, the Bacon Bets podcast. I was there on Tuesday, and we previewed the NBA Finals. A lot of that information is still relevant, too, with just one game being done. So go check out that podcast where you get your podcast, whether it be Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get them. Now, before we get started with my picks, all my picks today are brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. And if Caesars is available in your state or province and you haven't signed up yet, now is the perfect time. Use the promo code FTNBetsCaesar. That's FTNBetsCZR. And that's the promo code on the screen. Caesars will give you an $1,100 free bet just for signing up. And you want to have multiple sportsbook accounts if you're going to be betting props because you need to be able to line shop and get the best odds. Consistently for me, Caesars has been my go-to for finding the best plus money options. So sign up today with Caesars Sportsbook. All right, Quan, let's kick off the show with a baseball bet. I was actually looking at Blue Jays home run props playing the Twins tonight at home. But honestly, man, they're so juiced. I can't even bet guys like Bo Bichette. Like Bo Bichette's not even over +400. You're getting them at like +350, +380. That's trash odds. I can't bet that. So instead, we're going to take Teoscar Hernandez over 1.5 total bases at +100. So we're going to look for a little double up on our bet here. And Teoscar, he kind of gets forgotten in this Jays lineup, especially with some of the injuries that he was dealing with earlier on in the season. But when he's on, man, he's as lethal as Vladdy, Springer. In the last series versus the White Sox, for example, he really started to find his groove. 5 extra base hits in 3 games. He's only played 27 of 50 games. So a lot of injuries. You're looking to put those injuries behind him. And getting able to bat behind Vladdy at cleanup. I think that's a real factor here that really we can't underestimate. I think Charlie Montoyo, the manager of the Jays, he's going to put him at cleanup again, try not to mess with that chemistry. And Teoscar, historically, just much better at home compared to on the road. For example, this season, 9 extra base hits, 7 of them at home, 8 of them versus right-handed pitching. They're going to be facing Chichi Gonzalez. Not exactly a great track record of success in the majors. Now, if you want to take Teoscar for a home run at +330, it's worth a sprinkle, but I'm going to take the safer pick. And for what it's worth, just looking at comparative odds, just to get a hit tonight, he's minus 250. So I think, he could get a double here, home run. I just think there's a lot of chances here for him to get on base and at least get two. So at plus 100, I think this is a solid bet for this matchup against the Twins tonight.
Now, when you look at total base bet, that seems like such a layup for certain batters when you're searching and shopping around. When you look at total base bets, what are kind of the things that you use to put together, who's a good play and who's not?
Well, obviously the odds are the first thing that stand out. But at the same time, you want to look at, the Twins bullpen. You want to look at the starter and just kind of look at what their whip is. Like, are they really allowing a lot of hits per inning, that kind of thing? And again, Chichi Gonzalez, he hasn't even pitched this year, so you're not even really using any stats that are recent. They're mostly last year's stats and a lot of mop-up duty or even just openers. So with him, it's a little bit different being able to grade this. But for me, I'm just looking at it more like, okay, we're getting to play in front of the home crowd. He's been hot lately, especially the Jays being on this 8-game win streak where the bats are starting to come alive now. And then also just being able to bat behind Vladdy is such a factor that I'm not sure if books are really incorporating that, because the pitchers, they're going to want to try to avoid him. Teoscar's right there to clean it up, right? So that's kind of the stuff that you want to factor in. A lot of the guys on this list for the total bases, like Bo, Vladdy, George Springer, all minus odds, all at the over 1.5 line. So for me, I'm going to take the guy who's batting right in the heart of the order and get a little plus money action on it as well. All right, now let's move over to game 2 of the NBA Finals. I'm going to run one back here, Quan, because we hit this prop in the third quarter of game 1. And honestly, man, I just loved what we saw. So we're going to run it back. We're taking Klay Thompson over 2.5 assists at plus 105. And Klay just making some key passes in the playoffs. And we saw it in game 1. He did have 3 assists. Probably could have had 7 if Kevon Looney or Draymond Green could finish a layup. Both of them were just anemic around the rim. He was graded actually with 5 potential assists in the game. And how he got his assist, though, Quan, is exactly how we discussed it in game 1. The Celtics were pressing him off the three-point line. He's not as athletic as he was before the injuries, where he could drive past guys and get to the hoop. So he was dishing it to the open man. And that's really what was leading to a lot of these assists. And the Celtics perimeter defense really strong on closeouts. And you saw it in game 1. They lead the NBA in contested three-point shots during the regular season and in the playoffs. And in game 1, that's exactly what they were trying to do. And you saw it as well with Steph. Steph walking into three-point shots where nobody was even checking him. Of course he's going to hit those three-point shots. Once they started getting up on guys on the three-point line, that's when you saw the Warriors' three-point shot percentage start to go down. Now, as I said, 5 potential assists, 39 minutes played. He had 3 or more assists now in 5 of the last 6 playoff games, 10 of 17 playoff games overall. He has 3 or more assists. And in game 1 as well, the Warriors, very much a pass-happy offense. They did get out-assisted in game 1, 34-24 by the Celtics. That doesn't usually happen to the Warriors very often, so I don't want to use a 1-game sample size as using that. But again, the Warriors lead the playoffs in passes per game, assists per game. I think they'll go back to that in game 2. We're likely going to see more three-point attempts from Klay in game 2. He only had 7 in game 1. I don't see him relenting on that front, but I think the Celtics know that too, and they're going to try to continue to press him off the line, make him drive to the rim, which is going to lead to some swings to either Steph or even Wiggins, who was looking good in game 1. So give me the Klay assists again, over 2.5 assists at plus 105.
Now, did you look at Klay's threes and kind of was there anything there that you like to see?
No, because it's so overvalued, man. When you look at right now, his over-under is at 3.5. And it's juiced to the over at like minus 140, minus 150, because with him, when you look at 3-point props, I think it's about 65 to 70% of his shots come from 3-point range. So you know that if he's going to be shooting, it's likely going to be that and not driving to the rim. So yes, he could hit it, but I just don't love taking guys over 3.5 or over 4.5. Now, Steph, he obviously had like 6 threes in the first quarter and killed that 3-point prop basically within an instant. But that to me, Steph is a different animal than Klay now. Like Steph is kind of into his own. And I don't really think the Celtics are just going to let Steph walk into these threes like he was doing, where it was just ridiculous, where it was like
wide open.
Like I'm screaming in my living room. I'm just like, oh my God, like, what are you guys doing? And then
Yeah.
it was like, that's cash. Like, just if you're not going to check him, that's a guaranteed 3. Like, I mean, that's basically a warm-up shot for Steps, right? So I think Clay, again, I like the assist mark here. I think a lot of people are going to be looking to that 3-point prop. His points prop right now is sitting there about 20.5. And if that's the case, then, I think he's still going to be able to ring up some assists. And again, too, you just look at that matchup. Like, Jordan Poole didn't play well, but Andrew Wiggins was playing fairly well. Otto Porter was hitting some threes. There's just a lot of assist opportunities with this team. But again, they just weren't hitting shots, especially in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to move on to the alpha pick. And it's Jason Tatum, Quan. Someone who, depending on who you ask, he played terribly in game 1. But I don't think so. Like, he had 13 assists in game 1. So, again, he was just playing a different role because his shot wasn't going down. But we're going to bank on the points bounce back. And we're going to take Jason Tatum to have 30 or more points at plus 135 for game 2. Oh, my God, what an ugly suit. So I'm sure everyone is going to bring this up. I've seen it already on social media talking about, like, the bounce back game for Jason Tatum. This isn't the only reason that I'm betting this, but again, it is worth mentioning that he doesn't really get held down for 2 games in a row. So these instances that people are referring to, he scored 20 or fewer points 3 times in the playoffs, Quan, but in the next 3 games after those, he scored 30, 31, and 39. And it's not the same defense that he's facing either. He did it against the Nets, he did it against the Bucks, and against the Heat. And in game 1, man, like, it wasn't really for a lack of shots that he didn't get there. Like, he still had 17 shots, 7 3-point attempts, went to the line 7 times. But in those bounce back games, man, you just saw, like, if you look at how many shot attempts he was having, he averaged 22 shot attempts in the bounce back games and 9 3-point attempts. He's not going to leave any in the chamber this time around. So I expect him to come out firing. The game 1 jitters, get those out of his system. I also expect the Warriors, they're going to have to make some key adjustments on Al Horford and Marcus Smart, who just burned them in the fourth quarter, not let them, and they got to close out on those 3-point attempts. And if that's going to happen, you're going to see a lot more swings over to Tatum, and he's going to be able to drive to the hoop, because that was what was happening, why he couldn't get to the rim, because they were just packing themselves in the paint, and then that left Horford and Smart out there to be able to just take wide open threes. I don't think they're going to allow them to do that this time, so I think that only bodes well for Tatum to get 30 or more points. That isn't a vouch of saying the Celtics are going to win game 2, but I do think Tatum has a huge bounce back game, so that's why we're going to take him for 30 or more points at plus 135. Not
expecting Derek White to come and rain fire. Al Horford had a game of his life. I don't expect, like, it's these outliers, I guess, but we got to talk about the fit, because you didn't like the fit. I love the fit. Like, listen, man.
Put this back up. Yeah.
If Charlie Murphy walked in the club and in the 80s with Eddie Murphy and saw this fit, like, that would be ideal, man. That's like,
but that is straight out of a Chappelle Show sketch. Like, that's the thing. Like, that suit is like what Charlie Murphy be wearing, and then Rick James pops out of nowhere with a unity ring and punches him in the head. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, that suit to me looks like as if a dog just chewed up fabric and then spewed it out, and they're like, let's make a suit out of it. Like, where are Jason Tatum's friends? Like, where is the person who pulls him off to the side and says, are you sure? Like, you know what I mean? Like, like, why don't you try the nice pinstripe suit over here? Why don't you try, like, just where are the fashion intervention people to jump in and say, come on, man, this is a slippery slope, and this does not bode well for how you'll play in game 1.
That's a 10 out of 10 fit on the fit check scale for Quan's Corner.
All right. Well, then that's what we're going to do next week on Quan's Corner. Hopefully we'll get some better fits here for game 2 and game 3. I want to see, we're going to compare. We're going to see what's going on here. But now we're going to take a quick break. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. Bringing on my man, Iain MacMillan from BetSide. He's going to come on. He's going to give us some Stanley Cup bets, some Major League Baseball bets. We're going to preview UFC as well. Stay tuned. Dog Day Afternoon coming back. 1 minute. Welcome back to Dog Day Afternoon. I'm joined now by my man, Iain MacMillan, former Canadian resident and now proud New Yorker, I'd have to say. The awesome sports handicapper and senior editor with BetSided. Iain, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jill. It's good to talk to you again.
Iain, I wanted to ask you, since our conversation on Tuesday, I got to know now, what did you think of that Jason Tatum suit that we were just looking at? Is that something that you would rock in New York? I feel like now you're being a pretty progressive Brooklynite. That's probably something you would wear, right?
I don't think I can pull that off. No, I don't hate the suit. I think it's all about who's wearing it. So I think Jason Tatum could have. I think he kind of pulled it off, but I certainly could not.
No, well, and again, I think that's just a perfect conclusion to that. Just that we are just not fashion aficionados. We're not connoisseurs. We like a nice little plain black T-shirt and jeans, and we're as boring as possible. Now, before we get started on some picks, I got to ask you, you tweeted something yesterday that I think is bigger than sports betting. Oh. It's about weight loss. So, Iain, what's the progress on this? You were talking about how it's a real grind to be able to be dieting right now, working. Like, what's the issue here? Is it diet? Is it working out? What's the issue here on your weight loss journey?
All of it, dude. It sucks. I hate all of it. I just want to sit on my butt and eat pizza and drink beer all day, every day. But no, Thursday night is my Friday night because I'm off Fridays, Saturdays. So usually Thursday nights I would be drinking 12 beer and eating like an entire pizza by myself. Last night I went to the gym and came home and drank LaCroix. That was my night, and then I went to bed. So it's miserable. It's not fun. I've been doing it for a month and a half now, and it's just not. I'm supposed to feel better. I don't.
So how do the people who are interacting with you daily, do they notice like an attitude adjustment as a result? Like because usually the people like after about a month, like they're like, oh, I start to feel better, but like. Sounds like 6 weeks in, you're hanging on to this gripe about how much of a struggle it is.
Yeah, I felt good in the first couple of weeks, but now it's like my body's just like starting to reject the fact that I'm working out and eating healthy, and it's just not happy with myself. So
would you say? So would you say like isn't bacon your friend in this instance then? Like if you're probably going to try to go for a reduced carb diet, you know?
Oh yeah, I'm still eating bacon. I'm not giving up bacon.
All right. Well then, crisis averted. At least you still have some joy in your life. So let's move on. We're going to talk about men who are in elite shape, though. Hockey players and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's talk about the Western Conference Final. Avs lead the Oilers 2-0 now. Now minus 155 to win the Stanley Cup. Only up 2-0, and they still potentially have to play the Rangers or Lightning. And I'm an Avs fan. Like I'm going to probably be one of the biggest supporters about how awesome I think this team is. But minus 155 to win the Stanley Cup seems like a bit much, no?
Yeah, I think, especially if they play the Lightning, who I hope they play in the Stanley Cup final. Because, if they play the Rangers, and that's probably a fair price. But if they play the Lightning, minus 155, that seems like a crazy price to me right now. Because I've been harping on this all NHL season. They're obviously a very good team, but I'm not as high on them as other people. They have some holes. Their goaltending hasn't been fantastic in the playoffs outside of last night. Their defense has some holes. They allow a lot of quality shooting chances. I'm just not as high on them as some people are. And if they play the Lightning, that's going to be a tough stylistic matchup for them. So I would not be laying that on the Avalanche. But they've also avoided the tough teams to play in the Western Conference.
This is it.
The two best teams in the Western Conference outside the Avs, I thought, were the Wild and the Flames, and they didn't have to play either. So they've had a fairly easy path to the Stanley Cup final now. So I'm very interested. I really hope the Lightning win because I'd be very interested to see how that series would go.
Also, you're an underreact guy. Did you end up sprinkling on the under 7.5 in game 2? When I saw that total, I was just like, okay, guys, settle down. I know obviously you're seeing, 10 goals combined in the previous series and then game 1, but then it was 7.5. You're seeing a 4-0 game. Did you end up sprinkling it all on that total in game 2?
No, I went on the over. I should have underreacted. But when you looked at the numbers from game 1, they played such a wide, they combined for 37 high danger scoring chances. Even expected goals was over 8. So I saw those numbers from game 1 and just I got excited. So no, I was on the over. So that lost. I should have underreacted though. I should have just stuck to that strategy.
Well, you're the king of underreact, man. I figured if you saw a 7.5 in a playoff game, you would have just been like, come on. Anyway, I'm not going to harp on you on that. We all make underreaction mistakes. Now we're going to move actually on to tonight's Stanley Cup playoff game between Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers. Lightning sitting there right now at minus 135. Rangers back at plus 120 with an over-under, a reasonable over-under at 5.5. Game 1, though, 6-2 for the Rangers. And again, I'm not really I'm not following hockey as much. Again, it's sacrilege probably as a Canadian to even say that. But Rangers, again, both games now, home dog tonight. They were home dog in game 1. They're 7-1 at MSG in the playoffs. What are we playing here? Are we expecting a Lightning clapback, or are we Ranger danger in that here?
I need the Lightning to win. I need the Lightning to win tonight like I need air to breathe, because I hate the Rangers. I hate their fan base. I hate living in New York while the Rangers and the Yankees are good. It really stinks. This team is one of the least deserving teams I've ever seen make it this far.
How dare you make fun of my dad's team? It's just terrible.
Why is he a Rangers fan?
No, Gerard Gallant, that's my dad.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, God, yeah. I forgot about that. Yes, that's right. I forgot he was the head coach. No, I mean, this team is being carried by Igor Shesterkin the entire way. I mean, it's game 1, Andre Vasilevsky, because that was the big thing. It's like, okay, now the Rangers are finally going to play a goaltender that's just as good. But then Andre Vasilevsky in the first game probably had his worst career playoff game. He had a save percentage of 82% in game 1. So I don't expect another bad performance from Vasilevsky. I've gotten in arguments now with Rangers fans on Twitter. They're just calling me a hater, but I got to trust the numbers. Even in the first game, if you look at the stat expected goals, the Lightning had 4.42 and the Rangers had 3.08. They also had got more high danger scoring chances, 20-14. Like, this is the story of the Rangers in the playoffs. They're getting outplayed every single game, but they keep winning. I refuse to believe it's going to keep happening. I'm on the Lightning tonight, minus 125.
Are you going to be able to live in New York like later this year? Because you've already taken on the Islanders fans, the Rangers fans. I can only imagine you're going to start probably taking shots at the Yankees eventually, and maybe even I mean, you don't even have to try to beat up on the Knicks, I guess, at this point. But like, is there a New York team that you do kind of tolerate at this stage?
I like the Mets. I've been to a couple of Mets games already. Kind of like the Mets. No, but I tweeted out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, if the Rangers win the Cup, I'm moving back to Canada. Before they have the parade, I will be back in Canada.
Oh, my God. Oh, Ian, why would you put – okay. All right, now, lightning off a loss, though. I know a lot of people – I don't even want – oh, my God, man. All right, lightning off a loss, super dangerous. And I wanted to ask you specifically about this matchup. If someone asked you about Lightning puck line, though, at like plus 200, would you vouch for that, or you think, no, I would rather just take the safer approach and take the minus 135 for the money line?
I mean, I'm just on money line because I have a fairly large bet on it as well, so I didn't want to get too aggressive. But generally, I mean, if you want to get aggressive, puck lines are great to do in the NHL playoffs because teams are getting so aggressive with pulling their goalies a lot more than in the regular season, a lot more than past playoffs. Like, teams are pulling their goalie with like 4 minutes left in the game. So we're actually not seeing outside of games that go to overtime. Usually, if they end in regulation, they're most of them are being decided by more than a goal. So all the way up to at 2-1, you said, yeah, I would. If you want to go that route, I certainly wouldn't argue against it.
So what about then the total? Like, do you have a lean on that as well? Like, obviously we saw 6-2 in game 1, but sitting there at 5.5, both goaltenders obviously are the strength of these teams. But I feel like they could probably put up some goals on each other. Especially with that empty net factor. I'm kind of wondering if maybe the over 5.5 might be a half decent play on this one.
Yeah, the empty net factor is the thing that would scare me away from the under. But generally, I think game 1 was a bit of an anomaly because, like I said, Vasilevsky couldn't stop a beach ball that night. That's not going to happen again. He's a Vezina Trophy winner. He was a Conn Smythe Trophy winner last year as a playoff MVP. He's not going to have 2 brutal games in a row, so he's going to bounce back. So I could see being low scoring, but just because of how aggressive teams are, because teams are like down 3 goals and still pulling their goalie late. Like, it's hard to bet an under on a total that's as low as 5.5 because it's already screwed me a few times, especially in the first round. Where there's like 3 empty net goals and I lose an under with like a minute left. So I'm staying away, but if you were to bet on the total, I'd probably recommend the under.
For sure. All right. So now let's move over to the diamond. Braves taking on the Rockies tonight. Braves at Coors Field. Braves sitting there at minus 175. Rockies coming back at plus 150 with a natural Coors Field total at over-under at 11. And Max Fried, he's getting the start for Atlanta. Our man Chad Kuhl starting for the Rockies. Now, the Braves been pretty hit or miss all season, 11-13 on the road, 25-27 overall. Might be a little bit of a World Series hangover. Rockies, as usual, steady at home, but a train wreck on the road. So is it just as simple as that, or like how are we viewing this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to come on Dog Day afternoon and not give out an underdog. So I like the Rockies here all the way up at like plus 150 in this game. And a big reason why I like them and why I think they're worth a shot is because they're taking on Max Fried, who's a lefty, and the Rockies have been just smashing lefties this season. And it's not just at Coors Field, because even if you take out the Coors Field factor, they're still leading the majors in batting average against lefties. They're 6th in OPS against lefties. So the time to bet on the Rockies, especially if you want to take a shot at a big underdog, is when they take on a left-handed starter, and that's the case tonight. So, and also Chad Kuhl. I mean, shout out to him, a 3.56 ERA, pretty solid ERA for a guy who has to pitch at Coors Field. So, kind of like him in this matchup as well. So, plus 150, that big of a home underdog, I'll take a shot.
Yeah, I was actually looking at home run props for this, and my man CJ Cron, who I didn't even know who he was before my fantasy baseball draft. He was probably like my second last pick, just crushing the ball right now. He's plus 340 for a home run, most likely on the Rockies to hit a home run tonight, for anybody who likes to dabble on the home run props with me. But yeah, Rockies, it was the case last year. It was almost hilarious. Like they probably would have been a playoff team if they had just a half decent, respectable road record last year, which is crazy coming out of the NL West, where there probably would have been like 3 or 4 playoff teams coming out of there. But that's always been the case, is that they actually just play better at home than on the road. And I think that's a tried and true trend for that. Let's move over to the UFC, though, because I'll be honest, I am a casual when it comes to UFC. I have no problem admitting that. And when I bet on UFC, for the most part, I like to do plus money. And we were talking off air about UFC Fight Night, looking at the main event, Alexander Volkov versus, and I'm going to mess this name up, so please correct me. I'm just going to say, is it Rosenstrike or Rosenstruck?
Rosenstruck.
Struck. See, Quan, I told you we were both wrong. All right, so Rosenstruck, main event, both coming off losses.
Yes.
And just recently, both had losses to Cyril Gane. I just wanted to bring that up because I was doing some research. But when I picture this main event, I just think of Derek Lewis just knocking out Volkov at the buzzer. And then I think about Roz, getting decimated by Ngannou. But
I think we watched that fight together, Volkov getting knocked out by Derek Lewis.
We did. It was at Odd Shark offices. I remember because I was pretty lit up that night. But one of the few things I do remember, well, that was the McGregor Habib card, right?
Yes,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so it's pretty hard to forget that card. But how are you seeing this matchup play out? Both have knockout power. Both, I feel like it should be more of a coin flip. But again, what's your take on this main event?
Yeah, I think we're getting some value on Rosenstruck as an underdog here. I think he's kind of being undervalued because of his recent record, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. But those 3 losses, came against literally the 3 best heavyweights in the UFC: Francis Ngannou, Cyril Gane, and Curtis Blaydes. So, I mean, I'm not going to, deduct points from a guy for losing to those 3 guys. And you look at, his record. He has some pretty impressive wins against fighters who are more at Volkov's level. And they're all TKO wins, too, against Augusto Sakai, Junior Dos Santos, Alistair Overeem. And generally, just a strategy I have in the UFC is if there's a guy with unbelievable knockout power in a heavyweight fight, he's at least worth a sprinkle when he's an underdog. Because, I mean, these heavyweight guys, he just got to, connect once and the fight can be over. 11 of his 12 wins in his MMA career have come by knockout, so he has that power. And Volkov is susceptible to get touched at times too. He absorbs, I think it's like over 5 significant strikes per minute. Per minute. So I'm going to take a shot at Rosenstruck as an underdog. Like I said, just too much power not to sprinkle a little bit in a heavyweight main event.
Well, I was looking at the different odds too, because you know me, if I'm going to be betting UFC, I'm going to be going at plus money. I'm probably going to be looking at stoppage props. And surprisingly, Roz was only plus 175 for a stoppage, but he's plus 135 for the money line. And I was just like, why would I, that's not enough value. I feel like if you're going to be taking that, and I think the books know that too, that if he's going to win, it's probably going to be by KO. And I did find it interesting that the fight to not go the distance is actually sitting around minus 130, minus 135, which I think is, again, I'm not really the person who endorses many minus odds bets, but when you get a heavyweight matchup that's likely going to go that has a 5-round cap, and you're getting it at better than minus 150. So if you're getting at minus 130 to plus odds range, you almost that's almost an auto bet to me, for a heavyweight matchup. Do you have that same kind of take when you're looking at heavyweight matchups, like that just a KO is likely more to happen, especially if they get gassed out in the later rounds?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Volkov does concern me a little bit because I mean that fight with Derek Lewis was 10 seconds away from going the distance. He's a little bit more of a pick your strikes kind of jab it out, dance around kind of guy. But then again, I mean it's 5 rounds, so if Rosenstruck's still around in the 5th round, the fight's not over. Exhaustion's probably going to play a role with him because he's a little bit of a bigger guy. But yeah, I don't hate that. I mean, Volkov could still finish the fight, so if you want to go that way, I wouldn't argue too much.
So other than that, man, is there any other UFC bets for tomorrow that you're considering, or is that the main one that you're going to be betting?
A little bit of I'll bring this up. A little bit of an interesting storyline going on in this week's UFC. There's a Ukrainian fighter making his UFC debut. His name is Askar Mozharov. A lot of controversy surrounding his record heading into this week, actually.
Oh, is it fudged?
It's cooked. So actually, the UFC made an announcement this morning that they have switched his record. It was 21-11, and now they're going with 19-12 as his official record. So adding on a loss, taking out 2 wins. His opponent was already a favorite, Alonzo Minifield, at -175. That was just 2 days ago. His odds have now gone all the way up to -250. But the last time this Mozharov guy fought in North America was for a Titan FC event, and he tapped due to strikes to a guy who's like 15-12. So I think this Mozharov guy stinks. I know -250 is now a crazy price, but if you want to toss Minifield into a parlay, if you want to do like a 2-unit play, a 3-unit play, Minifield's going to crush this guy. This guy has a cooked record. He's the only time he's fought in North America, he got destroyed by a bum. Like, I don't know how this guy got a fight in the UFC. So that's a little bit of an interesting storyline heading into this weekend's card.
Yeah, looking at the odds for this, Minifield -250 favorite, -175 for a stoppage for him, and even not to go the distance is sitting at -700. So, and I think right now, if you're just looking at value, maybe round 1 for Minifield at +140. Don't love it. I usually want to get at least +200 if I'm taking a round 1 bet, but that would probably be the way that I would look at it, because if Askar is as horrible as you say he is, and just kind of looking at his overall record, he's probably going to get trumped right in the face pretty much in the opening couple minutes. And a lot of the time too, especially in the UFC, I find first round bets to be very tricky, because a lot of the time they'll just be sitting there feeling each other out for the first minute and a half. So you really only get about 3.5 minutes to work with where you're actually looking for a first round stoppage. I just find that drives me crazy. But now you can cash in on it every once in a while. But yeah, that would be my biggest concern with that. So yeah, take a look at Minifield at +140 for a first round stoppage. All right, well, that is all for today. 3 picks from me, 3 picks from Iain. Iain, before we go, please tell the folks at home more about your podcast, what you are doing at BetSided, where we can find more of your content, and maybe some stuff you got coming up.
Yeah, sure. I'm writing articles in BetSided basically every day. Bacon Bets podcast. Check out this week's episode because I had my good friend on, Gilles Glenn. So check that out. And I do bets show for BetSided, daily bet slip a couple times a week as well. And that's at 5 p.m. Eastern during the week, 11 a.m. on the weekend. So check that out as well. But yeah, Iain Mac Bets on Twitter.
Another good golf another show as well that I see you on every once in a while on BetSided is Bet and Breakfast. I think is another one too that I thought that was really fun, really good play on words. All right, so we're going to be back on Wednesday on FTN Network. Another special guest, more picks. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at GDawg5000. As he mentioned, make sure to follow him at Iain Mac Bets. I want to thank everybody for watching Dog Day Afternoon. Bonne chance.